television sitcom history. You were the first character to basically cross-dress and play it straight. But at first, when you were cast, they wanted you to have more of a nuance, shall we say. But was it your idea to play it that way?
Yes. Well, actually, I had not seen the movie, and as Jimmie Walker will say to you and said to you and his Bob, you know, in this business, as Bob Hope used to say, one day you're eating the chicken and the next day you're plucking the feathers. So I was plucking the feathers at that particular time. And Gene Reynolds, I had done a show with him, and it was an F troupe, and I was a stand-up comic Indian that was auditioning for the Cowie tribe. And they gave me all the terrible, you know, one-liner jokes. Instead of "take my wife, please," yeah, "take my squaw, you know, please." And so he liked me, and he wrote your name in the book if he liked somebody. And when this character came up, he called my agent, and they said, "Hey, Gene Reynolds wants you to be in this new television series that they have, and it's called MANC." And I said, "I don't know anything about it. I hadn't seen the movie or anything." He says, I said, "What kind of a part is it?" He says, "Well, they'll tell you when you get there." It pays $250 for the day. And like Jimmie Walker said, "I'll take it, you know, $250 for the day." So I come and he takes me into the dressing room, and there's this woman's Army Corps uniform hanging up, and these huge, gigantic high heels. And I said, "Oh, am I dressing with an actress?" He says, "No, those are yours, put them on." I said, "What the hell kind of part is this?" I didn't even see the script or anything. So I put them on, I got the hairy, bold legs, and Gene is starting to laugh, and he said, "Come on in, I'm taking you into the studio." So they take me in, and craft services, and all the actors and actresses, Loretta, everybody starts laughing and so forth. I said, "Okay, what is he doing?" He said, "Just a guy trying to get out of the Army." Well, they had me kind of playing it a little, the director, believe this or not, his name was E.W. Swackhammer. The director's name. So he had me playing, remember, you remember E.W. Swack? Yeah. And so he had me kind of playing it Faye-like in that. And I said, "Oh, okay, I didn't know." And Cyril Book was the general that came out. He said, "Oh, Corporal Klinger's still trying to get out of the Army." I said, "Well, I'll just keep trying, Mary, you know, wearing a dress." And they skip off into the night. Well, they saw the dailies the next day, and I got a telephone call from my agent. Said, "You know, Jamie, Gene Reynolds and Larry Gelbart saw it." They said, "They can't want to put it that way." So they said, "You got to do a retake," and that's always terrible. I said, "Oh my goodness, I failed Gene Reynolds, I failed Larry Gelbart." So they said, "Hey, how can we do this?" I said, "Look, why doesn't you let everybody else make comments about him and just play it straight? Like he has a cigar, and he talks like this, and he does anything." They said, "Okay, try it." So I tried it, and Loretta was right. I came out for 2 days. I stayed for 11 years. And I'll tell you something in this business. This is my 70th year in this stupid business. Sidney Poitier and brought Rock Around the Clock, and actually brought rock and roll into the world with Bill Haley at the Comics. I've had so many wonderful opportunities in my career, and I've also had terrible times.
I'm sorry, that
microphone. Mike is doing funny things? Yep. Are they laughing? This is my favorite story. I told this, I wrote it in my book. It was a really bad time for me in my career. And I was very, very desperate. And I remembered that Danny Thomas, who's from Toledo, Ohio, just as I am, and is Lebanese, had gone to church in Chicago to pray to St. Jude. St. Jude, the saint of the hopeless. Yeah, and he said to him, if you just help me, I'll build a shrine for you. And of course, Danny, as you all know, became so very famous, and he built St. Jude Hospital. So this was a very tough time for me, and there was a movie called The Greatest Story Ever Told that was going to be done. And I hadn't worked in a long, long time. I was really broke, I'd run out of unemployment and everything else. And I kept saying to my agent, you know, with this face, there's got to be something in this movie. The Greatest Story Ever Told. It's a biblical picture. He said, "Jamie, you're known for comedy. You can't." He said, "Did you ever do anything serious?" I said, "Yeah, I did a Rebel episode with Nick Adams. He says, get that, and George Stevens, the great director, will take a look at it. So I took it over to George Stevens, and I went into this little Catholic church. I'm not Catholic, I'm Eastern Orthodox, but I found St. Jude there. I said, St. Jude. I'm Lebanese. You know, remember Danny Thomas, who promised to you that if you did something for him, he'd build the shrine? I said, I can't build the shrine for you, but I'll do something, for you. I gotta have this part in this movie. You gotta make, and I light a candle. I only had 25 cents, and I put it in there. So I go, and my agent calls. He says, Jamie, pick up your film. And unfortunately, there's nothing in the movie for you. So I go pick up the movie. I give it back to Nick Adams, and I go back, and I tell him off. I said, what am I supposed to do? Sell cars, wash dishes, and I'm not lighting a candle, I'm not putting another quarter in, and I walked out of there. I come home, and I get a phone call from my agent. He says, I don't know what happened, Jamie, but they changed their mind. He says, I got you a 26-week guarantee at $450 a week. You're going to be playing one of the apostles in the movie, Nathaniel Bartholomew. Go over to the studio, Culver City, and take your wardrobe test. So I go to the studio next year. It's Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowell, all these big names in the movie. They're talking about how they did these wonderful things in Italy and everything else. And I'm saying, boy, I got out of that unemployment line. I got a job here for $150, 26 weeks. So I took the screen test. You had the robe on and the sandals, and they put a fake beard on you and everything else. So, and I came back to the apartment. And they had looked at the dailies. They wanted to see what you look like with all these things. He said, Jamie, the telephone rings. It's my agent here. He says, no, everything's the same. 26 weeks, $450 a week. But you're not playing Nathaniel Bartholomew. You're playing Thaddeus. I said, Thaddeus. Oh, okay, that's good. So I called my buddy up and I said, hey, I got 26-week guarantee, $450, and I'm playing the Apostle Thaddeus. He says, you're playing who? I said, Thaddeus. He said, you know what his full name is? I said, no. He says, his full name is St. Jude Thaddeus. I wound up playing the saint I was praying to. My favorite story. And I was also put on the board to St. Jude Hospital. Danny Thomas put me on. Danny Thomas has a park named after him on the south side of Toledo. And I have a park named after me on the north side of Toledo. It's the only city in the United States guarded by two noses.
There's a really cute story that you have about the Ginger Rogers dress.
Oh.
Do I use this thing?
Okay, yeah. Am I taking up too much time?
No.
Okay. A lot of the wardrobe I got was from the Fox wardrobe department. So I had things like from Betty Grable and from Ann Baxter and Judy Garland, and all the other people that did the show. So this one show we were doing a takeoff on Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. And they found this gold lame dress that Ginger had worn in the movie, and they gave it to me to put on. And Kelly Nakahara, who's Nurse Kelly, she was supposed to be Fred Astaire. So we did the number like dancing cheek to cheek. Got big laughs and everything. And the next day it was on the air. And then after that, I'm in the commissary at 20th Century Fox, and I'm having lunch. And who's there? Ginger Rogers. She's doing a guest spot on Love Boat, and she sees me. She comes over to me and says, you know, Jamie, I saw that show last night with the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. You know that dress that you wore, that I wore in the movie? I said, yes. She said, it looked a hell of a lot better on you than it did.
On rehearsal days, when we would wear, our civilian clothes, Jamie would walk in and look at me and like finger a blouse and say, is that one of mine?
What was it like? I've seen a few things from you talking about, like, basically female integrity on set. It was such a different time back then. What was it? Were there things that you were asked to do that you didn't particularly want to? You really took pride in the character. you talk about that?
Yeah, you bet. Well, no, on reflection, because I think sometimes it could be very difficult or trying or demanding or whatever. But 50 years later, I get mail from women all over the world who became nurses because of Major Houlihan. Very emotional, and you shouldn't do that for a situation comedy. But it meant so much to me. When I took the job, I made an announcement. Nobody was listening. I said, I'm going to be the best damn head nurse in Korea. And it was like half joking, but I took what she did very seriously. And as a result, the writers and I battled sort of to make her, you can be serious at your job and still be very funny. Since that was the kind of the convincing you had to do. You didn't have to be slapstick, or you didn't have to look funny, or you could be pretty and funny. And she was a funny drunk, for example. And so a lot of that was growing pains. And I loved every moment of it, I have to admit. It was great to watch her develop that way and be allowed to do that. I was on Broadway doing Same Time Next Year, and I was on hiatus from MASH, and the writers as a group called me, and Jean and Larry Gilmore, and said in this conference call, all right, how do you see what's coming up for her? What occurs to you? What's she going to do next season? What do you see? Oh, well, I said, just a moment, I have notes here. Yes, here she breaks off with Frank. She goes to Tokyo on R&R, and she meets a guy, not a doctor, who outranks Frank, and she falls in love and gets engaged and brings him back to the 407 since we did all of that. And I said, can you imagine Larry Linville? You can imagine what he's going to do with that. I'm going to walk in with, my God there, and his broad shoulders, and Larry's going to tear off the mess tent. He's going to, And so they said, yeah, this sounds great. And then what's going to happen? I said, they get married. And so Jean Reynolds said, well, geez, that's so permanent. I said, Jean, you're divorced. How are you talking about? So we did that. I said, she finds out he was disloyal, and then she's back in town. We had a show that was called Hot Lips is Back in Town. And out of that came this very special relationship, friendship that I had with Hawkeye. And we had been adversaries, and here we get stuck behind enemy lines, and we turn to each other for solace, for comfort, for friendship and love. And everybody bought it. Gene Reynolds, I remember Alan told me, he wrote it for us. And he wrote it many years in advance of when we did it. But he said Gene felt the audience might not be ready to accept that from these two characters. Not our audience. Of course they do. And the same thing with Birthday Girls. I always say Jamie Farr won me an Emmy. We did an episode called Birthday Girls. I want to go to Tokyo. I want to get away from these doctors who pick on me and they don't appreciate me and so forth. I'm going to go have my birthday with guys who love me. And did the car just break down, or do we have to
Yeah, the car breaks down, yeah.
So I'm screaming at him, let's go, you promised you'd take me to the airport. And so here we are alone, it's getting dark, I'm feeling very sorry for myself, and I'm angry at him for no reason. And finally spills out, I say to him, what do you know? It's my birthday, I wanted to go through my little thing. And he said, well, gee, I didn't know it was your birthday. And he said, well, what do you care? And whatever, she's herself. And he goes and he finds this little cupcake and puts a match in it instead of a candle, and he comes over to me with it. And I say to him, I've always envied you. And he said, what? The way you talk about Toledo, the way you're you light up when you talk about Toledo. And he goes, yeah, Toledo is great. And she says, I've been there. So you have this wonderful relationship that the writers and the producers allowed us to explore and get all that juice from you never knew what's going to happen, that put these two strange people together and see what would happen. So there were those special times when you were allowed to continue to grow for Jamie and me. Both, he had to give up his dresses and take over his company because that's what happens. You grow. And it's hard in the beginning because they can't possibly imagine you're going to keep growing for 11 years. And so they do what's there imminently that they do about. And so it was, you never stopped growing as an actor too. But also, it had such humanity, the show. Harry Morgan, if you took a poll, I'd say to everybody on MANC, who was your favorite? They were to a man, am I wrong? They would say Harry. We love each other, but Harry was our person. Harry was giving an interview, and the interviewer said, do you feel MASH has made you a better actor? And he said, gee, I don't know about that, but it's made me a better person. And that was amazing. But you were faced with those kind of things every day in every script. There was something that was challenging, demanding, and that's why 50 years later, happy anniversary to us, it's still so relevant. You watch a MASH today and it's like, it's happening now. And that was in the 50s, shot in the 70s, the 50s. And it was glory to play a woman who could find that kind of power and that kind of strength to stand up and do that in the 50s, because that was tougher even than it was for me in the 70s. But we're here.